everybody. Welcome to the inaugural Formula One podcast, F1 or F Off. My name is Gabe, and I'm joined by my co-host.
My name is Iddris.
This is our first podcast ever doing Formula One related stuff, and we are both really stoked to be starting on this little journey and, sort of sharing our enjoyment of Formula One as a sport and kind of growing along with it and expanding our enjoyment and our sort of entertainment of this sort of hobby that we're into. But yeah, let's see. Well, Iddris, do you want to start with the introductions or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Let people know what we're all about.
Yeah. Instead of just getting right into the meat and bones of the podcast. So yeah, Formula One, I would say, is incredibly important as far as our interests go. It's funny, Gabe, for the longest time, Gabe and I, we go way back, like
10
2000,
years, right?
Longer than that, dude. I think 2005 was the first time I met you.
I still maintain it was when
2006?
we saw Redline in theaters was the official start. Like
so many stories about that event,
right, which I'm
aside from
surprised that
this.
movie even went to like theaters. I mean, because
Yeah.
if it was nowadays, it would have been straight to like streaming services if it was, now, because that movie was
and not even the good streaming services, right? Like
no, yeah. It would have been like Freevee or something, like
yeah.
the best Fast and Furious. That's not Fast and Furious.
Maybe it can revive Quibi. But anyways, that. So we've known each other for like it's been some time. We've known each other 17.
It's been at least a decade.
Yeah. But yeah, so what's really funny is that I've always had a very technical bend to myself. I mean, I love engineering, science, technology, math, all that kind of stuff, STEM, right? And I think it was around 2010 or 2011 that Gabe really started watching Formula One heavily. And, for years, he was like, Iddris, I think you'd really like it. You should watch Formula One. And me, I was like, oh, no, I'm always busy. I'm doing other stuff and, robble. And then
your simulations, you were always, that was the thing. I'm running simulations, dude. I can't. It's like, okay, Neo.
I was running simulations, but yes, I did finally eventually make time to watch a full Formula One season. That was 2016, where Nico ended up winning that season. Spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen that. But yeah. I mean, at this point, it's been 6 years, and you can easily go to Wikipedia and find out who won that championship, right?
Which, fun fact, spoiler alert, was almost the name of this podcast if that movie didn't come out.
Almost.
Almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, if that movie is canceled or something happens in its development and they change the name, spoiler, it might just
forget about it.
Yeah, it might the name might be up for grabs. But I think I'd watched a few races with Gabe, I think throughout the 2014 and 2015 seasons, and I was like, you know what, I'm really liking this, and I'm gonna fully commit to like watching the entire season. And 2016 was when I started watching fully, and I've been hooked ever since. And yeah, it's just fantastic. And just everything about it, just like the technicality of these monstrosities of systems that they're building with engines and the electronics and the aerodynamics and the science of it all. And then like the off-track drama of all of it together. It's amazing. It's just, it's unlike any other sport.
I would say there, every sport sort of has its level of drama that's available, that's like kind of shows up, right? But it's so funny when you have your sports teams, right? And sports teams are owned by owners, and it's a franchise and it's a whole thing. But sports teams make like merchandise that's like for the sports team, right? But Formula One involves like car manufacturers that like have these like bespoke things that they make. And in some cases, like specifically Ferrari, you have this manufacturer that's just has so much history as a car manufacturer, and there's so much prestige about it. Like they literally, for those of you who don't know, Ferrari literally gets paid a legacy fee from the governing body of the sport, which is called the FIA, to literally participate in the sport. They're that important, like, because they've just been there since the start.
and I want to say it's $100 million
It's
annually,
something like
right?
that.
It's
Yeah, I'd
something
have to
insane.
confirm that number, but
Yeah.
it is a big chunk of money just to be in the sport because it's Ferrari. And we'll definitely go further into sort of the weird quirkiness of Ferrari in the sport because that could be an incomplete episode by itself of all the wacky stuff that they get involved with. But
Or podcast series, frankly.
or podcast series. Yeah, that one. See, look forward to a future segment called Mamma Mia Scuderia because that's kind of going to be what it's going to be.
Yep.
Maybe
The name
we'll
is
like
good.
put in I think what was it, Carlos? I think Carlos Sainz or somebody at some point over the radio said the Mamma Mia, and I was like, oh shit, okay, there it is. Yeah, so my Formula One journey, just to kind of add on top of Idris's, mine started. I think I was thinking about this earlier. I used to watch Top Gear when I was, in I think
Oh
starting in
yeah.
grade school, and because I was always into cars, I was always into Hot Wheels and stuff. But there was a segment they did in one episode. It was Jeremy Clarkson was doing a special on Ayrton Senna, and I remember watching that, and I was just mesmerized by what like the story of it because Formula One is full of rich stories, and I remember that soon after that, I was sort of intrigued, and I think the Ayrton Senna documentary came out not that soon after, and that sort of kind of started a bit of the sort of rolling kind of interest in the sport. And back then for me, yeah, like you said, Idris, this was like 2011, 2010. I think it was 2011. I think I was interested in 2010, but I didn't really have access to it.
Mm-hmm.
And for such a long time, it felt like this hidden secret. Like it was like I was part of like this secret underground society. It was
Yep.
sort of like when you were a Star Wars fan as a kid before like the prequels came out, and you were like
Yeah.
burning through those VHS tapes, which I still have. And
Yeah.
like you were like, everyone was like, you're into Star Wars, nerd. Like it just felt like this secret thing that only like a few
Yeah.
people who were really into it really knew before it got kind of Disney took over and got big. So
Yeah.
Formula One was similar to that. And I was just so drawn to, like you said, the technical aspect of it. I think the fact that it is you could say it's arguable, but I would say that it is in many ways the pinnacle, top of the crop motorsport venue. I
Sure.
mean, it's
Sure.
just nothing is faster, nothing is, well, frankly, more expensive, and
Yeah.
nothing is seemingly as prestigious as far
Yeah.
as winning. I mean, like the drivers, I think they get paid for the races wins, I think, but it's not nearly as much as they get from just like their own teams. Like so much of the reason why the drivers do it is because like the drivers championship is really just like it's a prestigious thing more than anything. Like the
Mm-hmm.
constructors championship is where all the money comes. And so
Right.
I think I liked that, the appeal of that, where it's like these drivers are doing this for the, I guess you could say, the clout in a certain way.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
But also then that sort of, as I started getting into it and watching it, I jumped right in at the Vettel era, which was a whole other thing. I mean, you talk about Mercedes dominance in the hybrid era, but Vettel's was definitely on a different level, and we'll discuss that at some point as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, I think for me, it really was just the prestige of it, the history of it, all of the interesting stories throughout the history, the way the cars changed. And also, I really enjoy how a lot of Formula One technology generally has sort of filtered its way into our cars every day. I mean, you wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
buttons on a steering wheel if it wasn't for Formula One. You wouldn't
Mm.
have the like paddle shifters for like cars would not be a thing if it wasn't for Formula One.
Yeah.
Even just the nature of like the advancement of hybrid systems and engines, ABS and stuff like that's all really impressive. And
Yeah.
so yeah, and I feel compelled at this point. I'm really really glad that now we're at a point where I think people are starting to really get into the sport in more significant way than they did before. And I know a lot of people, they sort of credit that to Drive to Survive. Do you think that's like right? Do you think
Yeah.
that's fair assessment?
I think it's a couple of things. I think Drive to Survive is I feel like it's, if I could put into context what led to this giant like influx of fans, if the new fans coming in are the spear, I would say like the tip of the spear, or the reasons for people coming in, the tip of the spear would definitely be Drive to Survive coupled with COVID, right? People are at home.
Yeah.
they see this new show pop up on Netflix. They're tired of Tiger King, right? So they see this
Yeah.
they see this new show pop up and they're like, oh, what's this? What's this automobile racing thing? And
Automobile.
Automobile, yeah. And they see that it look like these cars look different than the cars that we all
Like
drive, right?
spaceships.
Yeah, they look really, really different and weird. And like, why do they look that way? Why do they go that fast? And then you see like these guys driving them with these really cool racing suits. And you're like, oh, this is really interesting. And then you learn about some of the behind the scenes stuff and the drama that goes on behind these things. And some of it manufactured, some of it not manufactured, right?
And yeah. That was the meme for a long time where it's just like the overreaction from like Will Buxton about like a thing. So like, just to make sure you guys, people listening, understand, like Drive to Survive is a Netflix show that came out around COVID that basically each season covers a racing season. Yeah. And each episode kind of will focus in on either a particular team or particular driver or, multiples through a few. The one, if you're at all curious, it's definitely worth watching because
completely.
It's got good drama. I mean, there are some stuff maybe that's, a little exaggerated, but honestly, so much of it is real life. And it is really strange to watch it. Having also watched the season normally, it does make some moments feel more dramatic, but hey, I mean, that's television. You know what I mean? It worked, right? It's effective. Mm-hmm. People are into the sport now, partly because of that. And I just want to say too, ahead of time, like, by no means at all I mean, I can't speak for Iddris, but I'm pretty confident that by no means are either of us upset or like going to look down at fans who joined the sport just because of Drive to Survive. I mean, I'm honestly glad that they did because it just opens up a world of interesting things for them to explore as if they're curious about motorsport. And it just gives me more people to like talk to and interact with about the sport that like I said before, I had to like pull teeth in order to get people to listen to me talk about it, and like I was just holding in this information for so long because like I just didn't have access to people that were into it that I knew of. So but continue.
I just wanted a quick interjection. That the other thing that popped in my mind of what has really helped propel F1 to its popularity, I think we have to give it up to Liberty Media too. They have done a great job of marketing the sport in a way that wasn't done previously, and I think it's really helped to make it accessible. Right, like the fact that there's an app that you can just subscribe to. Right, you pay $80 a year for F1 TV Pro, and you can watch the races live. You see all the events from the race weekend, so all the free practices, all the qualifyings, all the sprint races, all of the actual Grand Prix races. This is excellent. And they have deep dive videos. They have all the seasons going back to, I think, back to the 70s, I want to say.
Yes. I went back and I actually watched through all of the legacy races through the 70s. The thing that was nice about the 70s section is that they don't do full race replays. Every time they do like a big old race recap and they have like a narrator who goes through and talks about it. So you really get these little good snippets of it. And it is amazing. Like this
anytime someone's passing through the car.
No, I mean, no, that would be amazing. That's something I'm going to try and do at some point once we start doing race recaps. I've already tried it a little bit. I just went and looked up Formula One articles and I was just reading the titles. It's like Max Verstappen comes in first place after a hard fought battle with Charles Leclerc. Like I just read those and I had the GarageBand has a megaphone setting that it just sounds perfect. It's like those old news reels from the 30s and 40s throughout the war that people went to movie theaters to get their news before we had television. It's definitely if you're interested in Formula One and you're getting into it and you're like a new fan, it's definitely worth having that app, especially if you watch every race, because that's the thing. Like I remember when the earlier years throughout the Vettel era, I had to like the rights to televise it. It was like Speed for a minute, and then it was ABC Sports or NBC Sports, and I had to convince my parents to upgrade the subscription so that we could have access to it so that I could watch it. And like I remember getting really angry too because I was like, no, like I want to watch it, I'm missing it. I was like really like that's how I really knew that I was super into it.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to Liberty Media, I think the fact that even the drivers can now have social media
Yeah,
and like be able to interact with people and show stuff. Like,
it's
I mean,
insane.
also, and that I think is really, really important because you wouldn't get moments where like you see like Sebastian Vettel, who RIP his career last year, he retired, which
Yeah,
is a
his
bummer
career.
because I mean that guy is a class act. I mean, he advocated for environmental change, social change. Like I remember the Miami Grand Prix, he had a helmet that was like it was underwater and it said
Oh yeah,
Miami Grand Prix 2032.
yeah, 2030.
Like we need
Yeah,
to do
yeah,
something if it so you wouldn't get this sort of you see these drivers and kind of give them a platform to really express stuff that's important and use their
yeah.
influence if it
Absolutely.
wasn't for that. So I definitely give a ton of credit in that regard for sure. 100%. I
Yeah,
was a little iffy at first, but I think it's been
sure.
good.
Especially when they unveiled the new okay, so for new fans to F1, the current logo and like the whole what do they call that? The graphics,
Yeah. Yeah. Sort of
the
the
whole
branding,
yeah, the
basically.
new brand,
Yeah.
yeah, the new marketing branding.
Yeah.
That they unveiled that what like the last race of 2017 or and out of nowhere to like, oh, this is the new logo and everything. And I was
I
like,
think
huh?
so.
And
Yeah.
that was when they changed ownership too, when Liberty
It's
Media.
like when it's like whenever Facebook would be the new Facebook, you'd get everybody on Facebook being like, "Bring back the old Facebook. This is terrible." And
Yeah.
then and then everybody just stopped caring
Yeah.
for like, just
Yeah.
blew over in like a week, and everyone's like, "Well, I got this." And then it happens again, and everyone's
Yep.
mad. Like, bring that old Facebook back.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I remember
Yeah.
seeing it. I thought it was fine. It's
Yeah. I
simple, and
liked it
now I don't
personally.
even
Yeah.
think about it anymore. It's just
Yeah.
it's what it is. And that's fairly inconsequential. But
I think another thing we have to give credit to Liberty Media for is that bumping F1 theme song. Anytime that comes on, man,
yeah,
yo,
I
it
saw it.
hits. Man, when they had the mariachi version at the Mexican GP,
That
I was
was
like,
so
what?
good. That was so good.
Absolutely have to do that
Yeah.
for every race. Like
Oh,
that
that
was
was
so good.
so good. I remember, honestly, I remember seeing that or hearing that, and
Yeah.
I had a huge smile on my face. And I genuinely want them to do that for more races. Like
Yes,
that just seems
absolutely.
so like, I mean, there's some you can't. Like, I don't know if you do a Canada version. I mean, I don't really think Canada has
Yeah.
like any distinct music style. I mean, obviously a ton of musicians are Canadian, but
Yeah.
like, they came to America for a reason. Maybe
Hmm.
like, Snow would have a like a mixed version of
Ooh. Ooh,
F1
wait.
in
I
farmer. You better watch the F1
Dude,
and
that's
make it
so
boom
funny.
boom down.
I was just about to say that I think what would be cool is if a music producer just took their keyboard and every single note just took an Alanis Morissette sound clip and just up and down the scales, right? And that's how the F1 theme song is played. I don't know what that would sound like. In my
Yeah.
mind, it feels good.
If
But
I would encourage everybody, if you haven't heard it, just like look up Formula One theme music. It is very epic. It is
oh
like
yeah.
the beginning of a
Yeah.
how would you describe that? It's like the beginning of like it's almost like a Marvel theme. Like you can imagine it being
Yeah,
like the
yeah.
music for like
I
a
can see it.
Marvel character.
Mm-hmm.
I also, one of my favorite videos I saw was somebody looped. It sort of has this moment where it kind of builds up and you hear like car like zooming past noises and it
Mm-hmm.
goes dun dun dun. Yeah. It does all this
Yeah.
like build up.
And
And
then it has
somebody
like
made a video where it was
the
the F1 music builds up, but then it never continues. And it's just footage of everyone like waiting at the start finish like line, waiting for the light to change, and the music just keeps building. That was
That's good.
so delightful. I
That's
was I was
good.
super, super happy with that. So I would say now I'd like to talk about specifically our expectations or what people can expect from the podcast generally. Like
Yeah.
what are the sort of things that we're going to be talking about? What's our goal? Like Idris, like to you, when I proposed this to you, or well, actually when we were at Austin, we were both like, hey man, we should do a podcast.
Yeah.
What sort of things in your mind were you like, I want to do this, like this is the reason I want to do this podcast, what would people expect from us? Like what do you think?
I think number one, just some bacon Julia Child French cuisine recipes. You know what I mean? Like just letting the people know, like, yo, it's okay to baste your turkey
The
with,
joy of cooking F1 edition.
yeah. But no, I think the biggest thing was just that we talk about Formula One so much, in
We
addition to
do.
all the other conversations we have,
Yeah.
that we were just like, we should just record this. It would be fun to do. let's see what happens, right? Do people like our takes?
Every time a race happens, I can usually tell if the race is exciting depending on what text message you send me and if it's all caps. So if it's just like, hey, did you see the race? I'm like, oh, okay, this is kind of boring. But if it's like, dude, like, bro, all caps, did you see Bahrain or whatever, then I'll know like, oh, somebody spun or like there's some drama happen. I'm in for a ride.
Yeah.
We went to Austin this the season 2022 season, so this last year. And I mean, honestly, I still like am so grateful that you got me that ticket. And I'm also really grateful for, my parents. That everybody knows like, hey, plane flights are expensive, and as like a birthday gift, it was for turning 30. That was probably the best present I could have gotten, because that experience was absolutely incredible. And I remember at the time, like when we were doing this, I would just realize like you and I were we were having just so many moments watching, and we're just like, this passion that we share for this is so amazing and it's so intense, and like I just wanted to be able to share this with
100%.
other people, like because that's the whole point. It's like, for me, it's always nice when you have that group of friends that's super stoked about something, and they're 100%. The ones that get you hyped and into like enjoying it. For example, I mean, my brother Ben, really, really good at advocating for Apex Legends. And so like he wanted me to play it because like he just like gets so stoked about it, and he'll do like illustrations of like how to play the game and how to interact. And having somebody do that for you, it makes the experience feel more welcoming. It's like if you went to a party, and if nobody talked to you at the party, they just didn't ignore like you weren't even there, then but you wanted to be at the party, it's kind of hard to kind of break into it. But if you open the door and everybody looks at you and goes, hey man, welcome here, check this out, we're just starting over here, and you immediately get pulled into, that makes it easy. And I feel like things completely. That we enjoy specifically should be accessible to anybody who's curious.
100%. And that's what I really was trying to harp on with the accessibility thing, because how were people able to watch Formula One before all this, before the app, and people would just stream or just just
you were torrenting it for a while there, right? What? Yeah, Taurus. You're a Taurus. Yeah, that's what
I am a Taurus.
I am the Taurus. Yeah, no, like I said, man, it was annoying. Speed Channel had it, and I remember like I had who were the commentators? It was Steve Matchett, Will Buxton, and
Will Buxton,
David Hobbs. Yeah, David Hobbs, Steve Matchett, and Will Buxton was like on the scene. And then when it switched to NBC Sports, then it was Lee Diffie and David Hobbs. And so like I had Lee Diffie, who was like new, and like I was, this was great. And I like David Hobbs, like an old driver, he did like touring car. He was like a famous driving like the Batman shaped BMWs in the 70s. And he was also a Grand Prix driver. So like he had that sort of interesting perspective, and it was just really fun listening to him talk. Like his voice is just really great.
Yeah.
When that like vanished and they focused in on IndyCar, then all of a sudden I'm like, well, man, I have to find some way to do this. And so that's why, honestly, I'm so glad that the F1 app exists, because for me, it is well worth that price, because not only do you get all those legacy stuff, like you get like, there's like documentaries and stuff on there, which there's a couple of documentaries that are still on YouTube that I always recommend people watching.
Yeah.
And so like, I think that it's definitely accessible in that way. I mean, it's just so great. I'm just really excited to be playing this. So
just be doing this. Yeah. What it do, baby?
What it do? So yeah, we're just gonna wrap it up here in just a little bit. But let's say just real quick, just so everybody knows where we stand as supporters. Favorite driver, favorite team. Doesn't have to be the same. You can kind of cross-pollinate, but who's your number one elite? Well, hey, let's say it for 2023. I mean, also from 2022, but like, who are you rooting for? Who's your dudes?
Okay, so all right, you answer first so I can see the format that you take, and I'll just count.
Okay.
Control C, all Control V, boy.
Okay, so honestly, at this point, I'm an underdog kind of person, but I'm not immune to teams being just generally really successful. It's hard for me to pick a specific team to like really root for, but I will say that Mercedes still kind of has a special place because I was rooting for Mercedes when it was like Nico Rosberg and Michael Schumacher when they were like just getting that team started. I wanted them to come up because I thought it was so cool that they had the silver arrows back. It was like a callback to the Grand Prix era of the 30s. And so when Lewis Hamilton showed up, I was stoked. I was like, everyone thought he was crazy, but I was like, nah, this feels right. Like this feels like this fits perfect. And it was the best decision he could have made for his career. And I mean, hell yeah. And like to say, like, shout out, like, special commendation. Like, I do love Lewis Hamilton, and I know some people are probably going to like cringe at this, and I get it, but Fernando Alonso is my number one dude. I know he can be brash, and I know he's like an old guy at this point, and he's just kind of a curmudgeon. But my God, in all the time that I've seen him race, I cannot say that I have seen him do something that was really reckless and stupid. Like, he takes risks and he makes bold moves. But that guy always leaves millimeter levels of room for people. Like, he does not flinch. And he is just such a good driver. I have seen him take cars that had no place being in the top 10, and he puts them in the top 10. I remember that there was some interview at some point where he said something along the lines of, it does not matter. I think it was Ferrari when he was driving for them. Somebody asked him about him being uncomfortable in the car. Like, it was hard for them to handle. The setup was wrong. And he said, look, I will be as uncomfortable as I need to be in the car. If it's fast, that's all I care about. I will make it. I will win. If it's fast, I will be as uncomfortable as you want. And that to me is like, that is championship material. It's like, it's gotta be fast.
I also think what's cool about Fernando is that I feel like he represents like the just kind of Formula One in a person. You know what I mean? Just like super intense and very skilled at what he does. And he's unabashedly a race car driver. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, Iddris, what's your picks?
So I would say, hands down, unequivocally, absolute Lewis Hamilton is my favorite driver on the grid. He just I think very much for the same reasons that you gave for Fernando. You know, that's kind of how I view Lewis's driving. I feel like every time you watch him race, it's a masterclass. I've always said
it's clean.
It's clean. The drip is clean. And I think and his drip too, like, right? Like, his clothes is nice, right? But with Lewis, I always really enjoy watching him like have some kind of grid place penalty, or it's raining and he's at like seven, starting below the place, like the Lewis Hamilton salvage race. That's what I call it, right? And like the way he works and just carves through that field and drives that car and puts it where it needs to be, it's beautiful. Hands down,
I definitely on that note specifically, I can remember several races where Lewis started either from the pit lane or at the end and worked his way up to like second place, if not winning. And I mean, you cannot say that that's the car. I mean, when Vettel was winning his championships, that Red Bull was so far ahead of everybody. Within like a lap and a half, Vettel he'd pull out like a 7 or 8 second lead. I would say, like, people, you say what you will about the Mercedes domination, they were fast and they would get ahead, but it was nowhere near as much of like a just complete walk away as that Red Bull was. And so I credit Hamilton. I mean, that guy can drive, and it is his driving. It is not, I mean, the car was fast, but you cannot discredit his ability to drive that thing. And it is always impressive.
And this is a discussion we'll have at another time, because I know we're gonna close it out here soon. But every era of F1 has had a car that's just been dominant. It is up to the driver for them to take that car and put it where it should be, right? Or where it could be. So I think that's like very much like with last season, right? Like, Max, hats off to him, man. He drove the RB18, he drove that like a beast, man. And he has so much to be proud of with this last season. Real quick, on my team, my favorite team, I would definitely say Mercedes holds a special place in my heart. I think similar to what Gabe said for his reasons, or Gabe gave for his reasons. But like, kind of a team that I really have always enjoyed watching is Alfa Romeo. Like, they're just a really fun team to watch. Their car delivery is beautiful. I love the team combination of Valtteri and Zhou. I don't know. I just always really enjoyed watching them. I also, and I think third runner-up, second runner-up, third person would be, or third team would be McLaren. I just like them. I hope they can figure it out, you know?
Yeah. You know, what's funny, on that subject too, really quick, Alfa Romeo is technically still also Sauber, and Sauber has been in the sport for, different iterations. And, for people who might not know, Certain manufacturers have been in the sport in pretty much the same configuration. Ferrari, McLaren have pretty much been the same team the entire time. But there are several teams on the track that had different iterations. Like Red Bull came out of Jaguar, which had like a complete failure of like a run at it. And then the Mercedes team came from, I forget, they were Braun, I think I think it was Honda, and then it turned into Braun,
right?
Because they had Button and Rubens Barrichello, and then after Braun, it turned into Mercedes. Right, I'm pretty positive.
Right. Yeah,
because Braun GP was 2009, and then I think Mercedes showed up in 2010. So
we should verify that, because I always thought it was 2 years as Braun. Jensen won his championship in 2009. Then Vettel won in 2010, and then 2010 was when Jensen left to go to, was it McLaren? Yeah, no, McLaren, right?
I'm pretty. We'll double check.
Yeah,
I'm pretty positive that Braun existed once. Like it was one season, one and done. Maybe. Which because I think there's a new documentary coming out about it, because it was like just this wonder, like this miracle moment of things. Ross Braun is a legendary aerodynamicist and just mechanical engineer, also race boss. I mean, he was right there with Michael Schumacher through the Ferrari years. So that guy knew what he was doing. And then he did Mercedes. He got Mercedes up to snuff, and now he's working at the FIA as like a kind of a leadership role too.
He actually just retired this season.
Oh, did he? Oh, Vettel, I didn't know that. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I gotta start reading some more F1 news. Let's get the seasons just starting to warm up. I'm waiting for those liveries to drop. Which, by the way, that is definitely something we're going to be talking about, because we do every year.
Oh yes,
we judge those liveries when they come out, like no and or oh yes. So everybody, we are really looking forward to continuing having discussions about this. We're really excited for the new season to come around. As soon as that season starts kicking in, we're going to be doing our race recaps, talking about stuff, but also I am looking forward to also having conversations about interesting sort of Formula One adjacent stuff, but also just, things that general people, kind of our generation of folks and stuff that we typically talk about, whether it's like racing games or like movies and stuff. Like I think there's definitely nothing is completely out of bounds necessarily for what we generally talk about, but
especially pod racing.
Oh, pod racing. Oh, that pod racing game though is really good.
I almost amazing.
Bought that. I need to buy that on Switch, because oh man, that looks super, super fun, and it has so many good reviews.
Absolutely.
But yeah, any sort of parting words from you, Iddris, before we end it up?
No, I'm good. I'm just really excited to be doing this with you. Gabe, like we go way back, man, and I don't think we could have a better lineup to tackle this and just have fun and chat in F1 and are you saying everything in between.
Are you saying that I'm the number one driver in the team? Is that what you're saying? Do I get all the good parts? I get out, like you test all the stuff, and then like I get all the good upgrades.
I guess that's how it is. But then who's our reserve driver? We need to find a
Nick could be our friend. Nick could be the reserve driver. Or maybe Jaco. He just wouldn't know what he was doing. So all right, well, everybody, once again, thank you for listening, and honestly, like we look forward to you guys staying with us, and we're really excited to enter this new chapter of our enjoyment of Formula One, and hopefully wrangle in some new folks, make some friends, and and just share the love of this sport and just of our passions in general.
Yep. I would say that's F1 or F off. Signing off.
F1 or F off. Okay. That just F1 or F off.
Yeah.
All right.
Get at your boys.
It's aggressive.
Yeah.